baby, it's fucking horse beef, man. Bringing you another prediction video. I want to break down the upcoming card this weekend. UFC, I think Saudi Arabia. I believe Saudi Arabia. Pretty crazy card. It's like, I would say, I would go as far as to say it's substantially better than UFC 312, which is just a trash card from top to bottom. Holy shit, what a terrible card. Like, even the co-main, yeah, it's a title fight, but Weili Zhang versus Tatiana Suarez. Okay, pretty cool. Dricus Du Plessis versus Sean Strickland is the only draw of that entire card. Every other fight sucks my ass, which means that we'll have about 5 or 6 fight of the year candidates on that card. But let's just get into the card in question here today, and I want to start off with my breakdown because really, like, the main bulk of this video we'll be talking about Israel Adesanya versus Nasruddin Imavov. Intriguing fight, absolutely. It's very intriguing. I think there are a lot of question marks. You know, there's a lot up in the air as to what version of Izzy we're going to get, and my prediction is that we will get the same Izzy we got against Dricus Du Plessis. I don't think that Izzy's washed. I don't think his physical abilities are washed. I think he's more than capable of putting up a good performance, but it's when there's resistance applied, he's carried into the later rounds. I think the mental aspect it's not quite as strong as it used to be for Izzy. Like, sure, he may not be the most mentally strong individual in the first place. The man cried at a fucking press conference, for fuck's sake, and just seems to be real petty for no reason and like holding grudges against 10-year-olds. So clearly Israel Adesanya is not a very mentally strong person, just in general. But he used to be able to dig deep. You know, we've seen him go to war, you know, with guys like Alex Pereira. He was hurt, compromised in their second fight in the UFC, pulled off the win. You know, he dug deep against Kelvin Gastelum, yeah, like a fat welterweight, but still like one of the greatest fights of all time. He dug deep there. But we saw against Dricus, man, his body language is still great. He's still pretty good with the poker face. He's good at hiding when he's hurt, but it's when the fatigue sets in. It's when you bring him into the third, fourth, fifth round. That's when he seems to show his frailties a little bit, and I'm worried for him in this fight because, listen, dude, if you've been around this channel since the middle of last year when I started making MMA YouTube videos, you would know that the first real, I guess, bit of attention that my channel got was during my Israel Adesanya hater run, right? If you recall, just recently, I went after the Dagestani fanboys in a couple of videos. I did the exact same thing after Israel Adesanya lost to DDP because I did actually predict the 4th round rear naked choke for DDP, so I wanted to come in here and gloat a little bit. And if you go back and watch those videos, you will find that I had a lot of animosity, a lot of vitriol towards Israel Adesanya for the race war that he was stirring up and all that. He seems to be staying away from it this time around, which is cool, I suppose. Have I forgotten about those things? No. Is he still a cornball for that as a 35-year-old man acting in that way? Absolutely. But there's something deep down inside of me that even when I hate somebody or hated somebody previously, when they go on some kind of a slide, you know what I mean, and they have some misfortune, I suddenly switch sides a little bit and root for them to get back to where they were. Maybe not to where they were, but at least getting back to a position where they're respected before retirement. Because I can see this being a fight for Izzy, sort of like how Luke Rockhold's fight against Paulo Costa was. It wasn't a great showing or anything, but it was a fight where he went out showing warrior spirit, which is something that he was criticized before throughout his career, really, especially in the later part of his career, just getting knocked out over and over again. Didn't seem to have the heart to push forward. And I think that's what we've seen with Izzy, especially against DDP, against Strickland. We saw the man, like, mentally, it seemed like he gave up in both of those fights, despite looking great against DDP. And I actually think that performance against DDP, if he can bring that version of himself against Nasruddin, of course it's a much different fight. Like, Nasruddin is, you know, a lot quicker on the feet, I would say, than Dricus Du Plessis, a lot less plodding, and does tend to move his head off the center line with more effectiveness and look for counter shots. But he is a lot less easy to hit than DDP. I would say he's a lot less easy to hit. DDP is just there to be hit all day long, but he has plot armor, so it doesn't seem to matter. You can hit him as much as you want. Donkey Kong will find a way to bonk you on the head, you know what I mean? But as far as where Izzy has the advantage here, obviously with the kicks, Nasruddin isn't much of a kicker. He is much more boxing focused, but in that regard, I think he actually has the advantage over Izzy. And, like, really, it's easy to look at Nasruddin Imavov's past performances against Brendan Allen, right? He had a very close fight with Brendan Allen, looked, I guess, unimpressive, depending on how highly you rate Brendan Allen. But Allen is one of the better grapplers at middleweight. So, like, Nasruddin, like, styles do make fights, right? So you need to And like, you need to analyze each individual fight just based on the matchup itself. And I think this is actually a bad matchup for Israel Adesanya. So like I said, man, Nasruddin Imavov, better boxing in the pocket. Although I do think that Izzy, he's sitting down his shots. He was looking more willing to throw boxing combinations, and like rather than just jabbing and low kicking, right? He was letting his hands go a lot more against DDP, and I think if we see that version of him against Imavov, maybe we could see him have some success. Maybe we see him finish Imavov, but I personally haven't seen Imavov get put in much danger throughout his career. He seems to have a really good chin, and he's fought some big power punchers like Jared Cannonier. So maybe it's off the table, but then again, Israel Adesanya is a pretty sharp striker, and he's found KO blows against fighters who previously looked very hard to KO before. So, anything can really happen in this fight. But anyone who thinks that this is just going to be a stand-up technical kickboxing battle, that's just really not how it's going to be. At least I don't think so, because really Imavov, if he's on the front foot for this one, he gets Izzy against the cage, he gets in the pocket, he uses his boxing, maybe Izzy's back gets up against the cage, he tries shelling up, baiting in for like a check hook counter, like he seems to rely on a lot nowadays. Seems to get him hurt more often than not, and actually leads to him getting put in compromising positions more often than not these days. But not only can Nasruddin piece him up against a fence with his superior boxing in the pocket, but he could just shoot on him. And just by virtue of him being born in Dagestan, he is a better grappler. And he is. He doesn't really put it to use very often, but he was able to control Brendan Allen pretty effectively. He was able to control Chris Curtis pretty effectively from what I remember as well. So he's no slouch on the ground. So it's tough, man. At the highest level, it's tough to pick against the guy who has more ways to win here. Although Nasruddin has shown that he's not the most dangerous guy on the feet. He doesn't possess a whole lot of power, but he's sharp and he can find those counter shots. And I can see him hurting Izzy, and I think it really just comes down to Izzy's mentality. Like I said earlier, if he can eat these shots, keep coming forward, if this fight gets dragged into the later rounds, Izzy is the guy with more 5-round experience, but at what kind of a pace, right? When the pace is a little bit higher, he does seem to fade a little bit, especially in recent fights. And if we're to go based off of his 2 most recent fights against Strickland and DDP, you would assume that the guy's washed, but those are 2 stylistic bad matchups for Izzy, while this one is as well. So for me, all the signs are pointing to another Israel Adesanya loss here. Now, I said I was rooting for him, and I am. Believe me, this will be the first fight of Izzy's in, I cannot even think, probably the first fight ever, including Izzy, where I'm actually rooting for the guy. But at the same time, him winning this fight wouldn't do a lot for the division. It would actually take away from the division, because Imavov, at the end of the day, is a more exciting prospect than Izzy. Izzy is on his way out. Based on his age, he's in his mid-30s, and I think he turned 35, maybe even 36 at this point. Doesn't have a whole lot to give, so even if he wins this fight, he definitely, sure as shit, should not be getting a title shot. And at least with a win over Izzy, Imavov can probably secure himself a title shot. And it would just be better to have somebody new in the title picture. And you might not like Imavov, you might not enjoy his style, but the dude's clean, he's crisp, he's technically, he's well-rounded. And I think he's going to beat Israel Adesanya here. I can see a late finish. I can see a late finish maybe if we see Izzy fade. Imavov puts it on him, maybe takes him down, chokes him out, maybe finishes him on the feet, crumbles him. But ultimately, I don't really see that happening. I think Imavov will just beat him by decision. I think it'll be a close fight though. But because it's in Saudi Arabia, if it's a close fight, Imavov will be given the fight. I know he's French technically, but yeah, we all know that if the fight's close, he will be awarded with the decision. At least that's what I could only assume. But I don't see a robbery happening here. I think Imavov will take this fight in a relatively clear-cut fashion. I think Izzy will have success in the opening couple of rounds, but then we will see him fade late on, and Imavov will probably take over. But I'm just hoping for a great fight here. I really hope that we see vintage Izzy, and even though his career can't really be compared too closely to Luke Rockhold, I just want him to put up a Luke Rockhold against Paulo Costa performance, man. Give us something to remember you fondly by. That's all, man. Give us something to replace the dog bender memories with, and the race baiting, and you know what? Now that I'm saying it all out loud again, maybe that's impossible for you, but just give us a positive note at the very least to remember you by. Because at the end of the day, as much as you hate Izzy, as much as I hate Izzy, the dude is a legend, man. And I don't know, man. Maybe it's just my Maybe it's just my soft heart, but I want the guy to go out on a good note. But I do think he's going to lose this fight, picking Nasruddin Imavov. But we'll get into the rest of the card now. And I would like to just quickly go over the entire card from bottom to top, and then we'll end it off with Sharipute Magomedov versus MVP. So let's go from the prelims all the way to the top, man. Hamdi Abdel Wahab versus Jamal Pogues. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but this is honestly a tough one. I don't admittedly know a lot about these guys. Hamdi is an undefeated heavyweight, and presumably he's from the Middle Eastern region, so I can see why he's been put on this card. Jamal Pogues does outdo him big time as far as the reach and the size goes, and ultimately I am going to pick Jamal because of that. I know Hamdi is an undefeated prospect, potentially, but I think Jamal's height and reach advantage will get this one done. I'm not too sure if this undefeated prospect, he's just not very experienced, but I also don't know a lot about these guys, to be completely honest. So take my prediction for that particular fight with a grain of salt. And we get into Bogdan Grad versus Lucas Alexander, and I'm just gonna go straight for Bogdan Grad. I think he'll get this one done. I'm gonna say second round TKO. Don't want to get too much into some of the lower fights on the card. Don't really care too much for them. Then we get into Jazz Davicius versus Mara Bueno Silva. Could not care less for this fight, but Mara Bueno Silva by first round submission, let's just say that. Terrence McKinney versus Damir Hadjovic. This is a tough one because Terrence McKinney either gets it done in the first minute or he gets finished and gasses out, or gasses out and gets dominated for the remainder of the fight. But I'm going to pick Terrence McKinney. I'm going to pick him first round KO. I think he'll put up a Jekyll and Hyde performance, but the positive version, like the Jekyll. Would it be Jekyll? Is Jekyll the positive one? I think, the nice version. Yeah, he'll put up a Jekyll performance and get it done in the first round, as opposed to gassing out like he always does. But then again, listen, a Terrence McKinney fight is never an easy prediction to make. But then we get into Shamil the Blob Gaziev. Yes, one of the biggest prospects in the UFC against Thomas Peterson. I'm picking Shamil, dude. I'm picking Shamil. I think he's going to ground and pound Thomas Peterson. I think he's going to take him down, drown him, finish him in the first round. Easy work for him. Then we get into Muhammad Naimov versus Khan Ofli. It's a tough one because I actually kind of rate Khan Ofli. I actually picked him against Myron Santos, against my better judgment, because Myron Santos is actually fucking disgusting, and the reincarnation of Anderson Silva apparently had no fucking clue. But Khan Ofli's pretty good, and I don't know if this is the time to start writing him off, but maybe it is, because I'm picking Muhammad Naimov by decision here. I just think he's a little bit better. They're both well-rounded, but I think Naimov is just better. And it's just simple as that, really. And then we get into Fares Ziam versus Mike Davis, dude. Now this is an underrated fight, because I believe it was Ziam who put out Matt Frivola with that knee, that crazy knee. I don't even know how he got his knee that high. But Mike Davis is a dark horse, a serious dark horse. Very well-rounded, technical everywhere. He's really good. He has great hands, and he's a good grappler. This is a tough fight to predict. Honestly, man, I'm going to go with Mike Davis, and I don't even know the odds here. I really don't know the odds, but I think Mike Davis by decision. I think he's going to get this one done. He is a serious problem at lightweight. He just doesn't fight enough, man, but he's so good. I would actually recommend, I think it was a 2019 Tiger Muay Thai Trials video. I recommend going and watching that, because that was the video that actually introduced me to Mike Davis, and I realized that this dude is serious business. Serious business. I think he's gonna get it done. I think he'll win by decision. Then we get Said Magomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira. This has banger written all over it. Said, he's not one of these boring Dagestani fighters. Like, he's not like a lay and pray type of guy that you'd expect. He actually has pretty fun striking. He's a great kicker. Really great kicker. But Vinicius Oliveira is this fun Brazilian striker. Crazy techniques. He pulled off that insane flying knee KO over Sopai. Now, I don't know if he's as crisp as some people say he is, but he clearly possesses a lot of power, and he's a wild card on the feet. Ultimately, this is a tough one to pick. I think this is the perfect fight for Said and Magomedov to win. But I think that Vinicius Oliveira is going to win. But then again, if it goes to decision, like the same argument that I had with Imavov, right, over fucking Adesanya, if it goes to decision, it's a close fight. Said would probably get the win. But I like Vinicius Oliveira, and I like to think that he is more than just a hype job, because Sopai is no joke, right? And he beat up Sopai. So, I'm gonna pick Vinicius Oliveira. I don't know if he'll finish Said Magomedov, but at the same time, I think he will, dude. I think second round TKO for Vinicius Oliveira, but I could be very wrong about this one. This is one of the predictions that I'm most I guess, dicey feeling about. But then we get into Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Now, another tough one to pick because both guys, I think Jairzinho Rozenstruik was his last fight against Tai Tuivasa where he honestly pieced him up. He fucking pieced him up. It was a technical heavyweight masterclass of striking, to be honest. Hands looked great. He looked really great in that fight. And Pavlovich is coming off of the Volkov loss where he looked way behind it. Listen, this is going to be a return to form for Pavlovich, I think. I think he's going to KO Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the first round, although there's a part of me that thinks Pavlovich might come out gun-shy. At the same time, I think he's going to chin Jairzinho Rozenstruik, but I can see either guy chinning each other in the first round. Either way, I think this fight is going to end in the first round. The reach of Pavlovich is just something else, and Jairzinho Rozenstruik has a bit of that T-Rex arm, a little Velociraptor arm situation, especially for a heavyweight. And Pavlovich, I think, will just land a bomb from range and put out Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Another one that I'm a bit dicey about. Jairzinho's a bit older. He's 36 years old, although it doesn't seem to factor in as much in the heavier weight classes. But then we move on to the co-main event. Pretty hype fight, dude. Sharapute Magomedov versus Michael Venom Page. Now, I understand a lot of people are picking MVP here. A lot of people are very confident that he's going to school Sharapute, but it's tough for me. This is a very close fight. In my personal opinion, I know Sharapute hasn't beaten the highest level competition, and he actually he looks very human in all of his fights. Like, I haven't seen a single fight except for when he fought that whoever the fuck that Brazilian was. That dude, like, I don't know who he was when he knocked out like 2 fights ago. Like the fight before he fought Armin Petrosyan and pulled off one of the craziest knockouts of all time, right? The double spinning back fist. Who was it? I forget his name, honestly, because he should not be in the UFC. But I don't know. I feel like Sharapute hasn't actually fought high-level competition, and he hasn't went out there and just straight up styled on really any of his opponents in the UFC so far. He's looked pretty unimpressive. And Michael Venom Page, he's a frustrating guy to fight. He has a lot of experience, especially in striking, and this will be a striking contest. Like Sharapute, he may be from Dagestan, maybe from Russia, but he's no grappler. In fact, he sucks on the ground. So this will be a striking battle. And ultimately, I think Sharapute probably has a speed advantage. And I actually think, and this may be a hot take, but I think MVP is an overrated striker. When people rate him as like a top 10 striker in the UFC, like, no, the dude has a blitz. He only blitzes in. His jab is useless. Everything is just to set up the right hand. It's the only fucking shot. His cross or his overhand, really his backhand, whatever is his backhand in that moment is the only shot that he throws that has any danger. Everything else is window dressing. Yeah, he has some pretty snappy kicks. He doesn't really put them to use very often. I hope he does in this fight. But I think he has the perfect style to beat up Sharapute Magomedov, and I'm going to pick Michael Venom Page. I don't think he'll KO Shara, because Shara actually does seem to have a pretty good chin. But simply by virtue of the fact that Sharapute Magomedov assaulted somebody in a shopping mall for showing public displays of affection. Listen, I don't like public displays of affection either, but the punishment must fit the crime. And in my personal opinion, sucker punching somebody in a shopping mall and what do you do? Kick him in the head when he's on the ground too, right? Potentially murdering somebody is not exactly fair punishment for giving your girl a peck on the cheek. You know what I'm saying? Listen, it may be controversial. In fact, I know that will be controversial to a good bit of you guys. But you can kick rocks because that's ridiculous. And that's not the only reason why I'm picking MVP. But I simply just want Sharapute to lose because of that. Even though I like Sharapute, I like the way he fights. I think he's a fun fighter to watch. I think he's quite skilled as well. I actually think he's quite underrated. I think some people are underrating him in this fight and picking MVP 2 unanimously. I can see Sharapute winning this fight, to be honest. I can see him knocking out MVP. Because MVP is getting up there in age. And it's a new weight class for him. Might not be new for him, but it's not a weight class we've seen him compete in very often. So you know what, man? I'm picking MVP. I think he'll get it done. I think he will win by decision. I think he will leave no questions. And I think he won't leave the judges with any other choice but to give him the decision. That's what I think. I think he'll piece up Sharapute, but Shara may have a moment or two, maybe in the first round. But MVP has been in there with so many high-level strikers. He really has. So it's tough to pick anyone against MVP in that kind of fight. Like even Ian Gary looked like he was potentially a pretty high-level striker, but he could not do a thing against MVP. He couldn't land anything clean, and he resorted to wrestling. So at the end of the day, I don't see Shara really getting much done here against MVP. but I could be surprised, and this fight is a lot closer than some people are giving it credit for. But that does conclude my thoughts on the card, everybody. I appreciate you guys watching. Looking forward to the card this weekend. Look forward to a new video in the coming days, and I'll see you on the next one.